Good morning, friends. How are you today? Welcome to December and the first live stream of December. I'm Steve Yulberg, and for Dulcimer Crossing, this is something we do every week. Today, we're going to be talking about playing the changes or chord progressions. Let me turn that down so we don't get any conflict here. And I have one other thing to open up, and that's this. Again. So, have you heard of the phrase playing the changes? There are several people I just put together for my evening prayer service, which starts tonight every Wednesday in the season of Advent. I just put together the handout that people are going to use. And I'm always stuck when I'm doing this with the challenge of, do you give people the musical notation? Some people definitely want that. They got to have the musical notation. Some other people are confused by that, and they want a chord chart, or they just want to know the changes. They want to know when things happen. They don't need to know what notes are doing what when. And both seem to disdain the other based on what we prefer. So our preferences can be things that divide us. That's really not what we want, but it is something that does happen. Now let me open the chat there and say good morning. And add the graphics for just a minute. So I don't know if this is a familiar phrase to you, playing the changes, or just give me the chords. Some people I've known are people that want to have everything laid out every time it happens, because they feel they're anxious about what can happen, and am I going to forget, and those kind of things. And I understand that. But what I've noticed is, this is my own experience. I've never heard of the phrase ringing the changes, Jim, so I don't know that that's the same or not. What I'm familiar with is, and this would take place in a lot of worship music situations. And I think I need to turn that around there. But if I'm playing, this land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me. Now, this is one of those 3-chord songs, and when I'm playing it, I start on a chord, da 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 da. I go to the next chord and back to the other chord and to the next chord, da 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 da. This land was made for you and me. So it's a 3-chord song, and I da da da. Let's use our handy dandy chord finder. Da da da, 4 chord and back to 1 chord, and then the 5 chord and back to 1 chord, and then the 4 chord and back to 1 chord, 5 chord, da 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 1. So if I think about it without chord names, but think of it in terms of chord relationships, I have the 1 chord is where I strum to get started, but then the whole song begins on the 5 chord, and then it goes back to the 1 chord, then it goes to the 5 chord, and then it goes to the 1 chord, and then it goes to the 4 chord, and then it goes to the 1 chord, and it goes to the 5 chord, and then it's back to 1. A change ringing. Now, I've not heard about that either. Now, I have heard about ringing up the change in a retail situation. When I worked in a drugstore, we had a cash register that would actually ring. Now, I've left my thing on there, which get that out of the way so we can see what's going on when I'm playing. But can you see a progression here? After every chord I play, I go back, I start at the 1 and I go to the other ones, but I keep coming back to the 1. Now, this reminds me of running Death Valleys in basketball practice in the gym, where you start on the baseline and you run out to the foul line and touch it, come back, touch the baseline, run out to the volleyball line, come back and touch the baseline, go out to center court, come back, and then to the other volleyball, and then the other, and then where you have to keep, you're always going back to do in that way. So I'm thinking of the 1 chord as my baseline. I'm always coming back to it after everything I do. And so that's one of the things I'd like you to think about. When you're learning a tune or playing something, do you really have to have everything in front of you all the time? Or can you decide, and this is one of those tunes where the chorus and the melody, I mean the melody of the chorus and the melody of the verses, the chords of the melody, the chords of the verse, the chord, let me say this again. The melody of the verse and chorus are the same. The chords of the verse and the chorus are the same. So all I have to do is figure out what are the words that go with this as I change. Now, let's try a song like Jingle Bells. We're going to do it in D. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. 1 chord for that whole time, and it is the 1 chord. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a 1-horse open sleigh. Whoa, there was something different that happened in that one. Okay, we're not going through all the options, but we do start with a 1 chord. And then there's this 5 of 5 thing. Because in D, I go to the 2 major, which can be called 2 major or 5 of 5, because it goes to the 5 chord. Now this is the chorus. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun! G chord, D chord, E chord, A. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. 4 chord, 1 chord, 5 chord, 1. This is the chorus. So the changes as I'm going to do them are a 1 4 1 2 5. And then a 1 4 1 5 1. Now for the verse, dashing through the snow in a 1-horse open 4 chord, or the fields we 5 chord, dashing all the 1 chord, da 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 4 chord, da 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 da. Oh, 1 chord, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a 1-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a 1-horse open sleigh. Now, I'm using these relationships because that means we can go to any key, but sometimes the relationships of the chords to each other is more confusing if we don't have the names. So for Jingle Bells, I'm playing it in D. So I start off dashing through the snow in a 1-horse open. Oh, I do not like this period thing. D, o'er the fields we A, laughing all the way. Now, oops, no, come on. And I'm doing this with punctuation this way. Dashing through the snow, our hearts open sleigh, over the fields we go, laughing all the way, bells and bobtail ring, spirits red, what fun it is to sing a sleighing song tonight. So this, with the repeat signs, I don't have to learn when do the chords change for everything. I can distill and say, oh, this is going to be repetitive this way. Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh, o'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtail ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Then there's this oh, that turnaround is often the 5 chord. And then we're into the chorus. Jingle bells, jingle bells. Wow, my fingers keep typing in things that don't belong here. So I'm putting this, do not give me an extra dot. Because people do not want to do our punctuation. They've made automatic punctuators, which are not what I want. So if I look at the D, G, E, A that I have here, that's the chorus. You can see it's like, oh, okay, D, G, D, A, D. So go down to the first one, which is where the verses are. A day or two ago, I thought I'd take a ride, and soon Miss Fanny Bride was seated by my D. The horse was lean and B, its fortune seemed our G. We drove into a drifted A, and we got upside. Oh, chorus, which is the second group. D, 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 G, 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 D, 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 E, A, A, D, 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 G, 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 D, 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 A, G. And we are back home. All right. This is interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm seeing that there's 10 comments, and I'm trying to respond to comments as they come in. However, when I click on comments, it doesn't let me see the comments. So I wonder what's going on with that. So if your comment got overlooked, please let me know so that I can get to it. There's a weird display thing happening. Now, that was Jingle Bells. The other one I did was This Land Is Your Land. And I see, Doug, you talked about you're better at the letters than the numbers. So we're going to talk about a way to get to that in just a moment. So I'm going to start with D as my strummed chord, but then everything goes to the G chord. This land is D chord, this land is A chord. This land is D chord, this land is G chord, this land is D chord, A chord is back to D. Good observation. 111 is major or minor because it doesn't have a third in it to tell us which one it is. If we add the 113, we've definitely got the minor third there present. We've got all 3 notes available in the chord. to hear. And in an instrument that does not have a 6.5 fret, that's our only way to get to an E, is a 1-5-1, the power chord. And in context, it's a short turn. It's taking us to the A. Now that makes sense. It's even better. So you can see that this one is just going back and forth, touching back to D after everything it does. Now, what if it's in the bleak midwind, in the bleak This has got more than ones and fives. D, 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 in B minor, D, G, E minor, up to A. D, walking down to B minor, to D, E minor, A, D, G, B minor, A, D, A, D, B minor, or E minor. I'm going to call that a B minor. Now the E minor. D, A, D. One way to figure this out, we talked about how do I get better with the numbers and the letters, is if you have a piece of music that has the letters in it, turn it into numbers. Let me open up an example and we can go through and test that theory, or practice our skill. That's what I want to say. This is one of the ones, today begins my Advent evening prayer. And let's look for let's pick one that's not changing too often. That looks confusing, so we won't pick that one. This is the one we want. Okay. So we're going to share my screen. And let's see if we can get that bigger. So far, we're not seeing it bigger. Well, let's not worry about that at this minute. Zoom. Oh. I don't want to do that. I want to zoom. That's what I meant. Here we go. Now we got full size. So we start off with the D chord. We have two sharps at the beginning, and our last note is a D. So this is a good example of a tune that is actually in D. So our D chord is going to be our one chord. So we're going to play D, da, 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 G. The G is the 4 chord. So I'm going to call this 1. I'm going to call this 4. Here's the 5 chord. D, G, A. Oh, this is interesting. I've got the 3 minor, and I've got the 6 minor, and I've got the 5 and the 1. Now, if we've just gone through, this is one phrase. And then I do it again, 2 measures of D, just like there, 1 measure of G, good, 1 measure of A, good. We've got the 3 minor and the 6 minor again, and then the A, D. Oh, and this is one of those things, playing the changes. I realize if I learn this first phrase, I don't have to relearn the second phrase because I do it twice. Then something different happens. 3 minor for 2 measures, 2 minor for 2 measures, 6 minor for 2 measures, and then a D and an A, and then, which is the 1 and the 5, then 1, 2, 6, 5, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. D, 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 G, A, D minor, 3 minor, 6 minor, A, 5, D, 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 G, A, 3 minor, 6 minor, 5, 1, 3 minor, nada, 2 minor, 6 minor, D, 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 1, 5, 1, 2, 6, 4, 5, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. So I'm taking the paper, I'm putting the numbers by it and taking time to be able to count it. And then as I play, I then talk about it in terms of the numbers that I'm using. Where do you see the DE? Oh, yep, you're right. That should be, that D, that E is silent. In this land is your land. That is a typo. That was me trying to post it and not get a period. Yes, and so being able to translate into, yes, got it. Thank you, Talon. Being able to translate, and this is true for as children are learning songs. I mean, having perfect pitch is one thing, but children will learn songs pitch specifically. So if you teach them a song, they're not reading music notation at all. But if you teach a child a song in a particular key, they might, at a certain level of development, they may not be able to recognize the same song in a new key. It'll be as if it's a brand new song. But a stage in oral development and pitch recognition is when I can take that song and move it to a new key and recognize it's still the same song, even though the pitches are different, because the relationships of the chords to each other, the intervals, are the same. So Jingle Bells is not usually in D. I just happen to be here. But if I would translate my Jingle Bells song to G, or This Land Is Your Land, either one of these songs, this land is C chord, this land is G chord, and now the D chord, and now the G chord, and now the C chord, and back to G chord, D chord, and coming back to G. Da 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 da. This land is your land, this land is mine. What I'm doing is transposing each time, going up a step into a new key. The relationships of the chords, because I know the progression, I know the changes, the order that they're going to come in. I know that that's going to work when I pick a new one. Now, I did in my ear have to come up a couple times with what's my starting note. That can still be a challenge. But if I know the changes, I can easily get there. Now, the other thing that will happen, and this happened a lot when I was learning all these things at the Bluegrass Jam on Wednesday nights at Avogadro's Number in Fort Collins, Colorado. So let me give a shout out for Avogadro's, Rob Osborne, and that wonderful venue and location that hosted this weekly jam, where I met a lot of good musical friends. I developed a lot of good musical skills and learned from everybody there how to play by ear, how to survive in the jam, how to learn some complicated tunes that the singer gets to pick the pitch. And so I'm going to have to adapt in order to make the singer sound good. Don't envy, learn. Learn from her, don't envy her. Now, some of us may have to, it's like the safety patrol at school made you step on every step as you went up and down the steps. You wanted to skip some steps. Some of us want to skip some steps, and others of us actually need to take every little step along the way. If you're a person that needs all the steps along the way, take them. Later on, they might have been scaffold that you don't need anymore, but use them in order to learn it. Changing the keys so they can match the voice of the singer is really important. My wife and I were just listening to a recording, like, these are great songs, and I know they picked the keys because they thought it was a collection of global songs for worship, and they figured these might be keys that the community might be able to sing in, or they're really good for the instruments to play. They were not necessarily the right songs for these singers in terms of key. If they changed the key, the singers would have sounded better in the songs. But they did, they were doing what they could. They were wanting to demonstrate stuff. But you've heard that before. You go, I don't think this is working. It might be a great song, and we may just write it off because we don't like the recording of it or the performance of it. But I know where I was going. So at this jam session at Avogadro's Number, boy, I got off track, didn't I? And the railroad tracks run right outside Avogadro's Number. So if you're doing a gig there, you better have a railroad song because you're going to need it at least once in the gig. Anyway, they would say, this is a 1-4-5 song, but it's got a 6 minor in it. Or they might just say 6. They might not say 6 minor. So like if I play Amazing Grace, how 4-chord G, the one that saved a wretch like 5-chord, I won, and 4 back to 1, 1 6, 1 5, and 5 and 1. Now, not everybody puts that 6 in there, and sometimes the one guy, the banjo player Mike, would often say, "This is a 1-4-5. It's got a circle of fifths walk down." Ma. Na da 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 No, that's not the song I was thinking. That's not the song, sorry. 5'2" works. 5'2". So I'm at a D chord. I'm going to go to an F sharp. 5'2", eyes are blue. But what those 5 keep doing? Has anybody 5. Running to a 5'2" all covered with fur. Diamond rings and all those things. You can bet your life it isn't her. But could she love? Could she woo? Could she who? Has anybody seen? Has anybody seen? Has anybody seen my gal? That is one of those. Railroad Bill Walks in Circles. Okay. I'm not familiar with that song. That's one I'm going to have to learn. 5'2" does that. Alabama Jubilee. But once you get going, this is a progression that walks us through the circle of fifths. And we're not going to have time to talk about that today, but we can talk about that in the future and go back and use the circle of fifths as a way, use a tune as an example of how to make the circle of fifths get us back home. As always, if you have questions after this, you can leave them here in the chat for this video on Facebook. You can write to me, steve@dulcimercrossing.com. You can also do that if you have ideas for the kinds of things you would like to cover in these live streams. I've gotten wonderful suggestions. Thank you, Jim. You sent several of those. Aha, good. Ooh, maybe we can make a nice list of circle of fifth songs. That could be a useful thing. We can use those examples and diagnose those, prognosticate them. Tonight, a couple of things that are coming up. Tonight is the live stream, or it's a Zoom Advent prayer service. That's my what I'm doing every Wednesday, and it's a play along thing. If you want to sign up for it, you can do that. It'll also be broadcast on my Facebook page. Let's see if that's, no, I don't want to be there. Let me go here. So the musical Advent devotions are going out right now. That's the wrong one. This is the one I want to tell you about. I'm going to share the screen. There's several ways that if you want to be part of this Advent season, let me share my screen. On the Owl Mountain Music page, there are Advent lessons or devotions that are going out every day. Ariane Klauer from Germany has created this wonderful Advent calendar, and starting yesterday, the doors started opening. Dulcimer Friendly Evening Prayer is what we're doing every Wednesday. And there are other things coming up. So that gave you the link in the Facebook page. The evening prayer service will also be broadcast on my Owl Mountain Music page and archived there if you're not able to come and join us exactly when it's happening. The other thing is tomorrow. Let's see. There we go. It's Thursday. Aaron May and I are going to have our conclusion to the Leap Forward series that we've been doing in music theory this year. And we're going to take a look back at the past through the videos that we've, the lessons we've had from all the different teachers, including the ones we began in January. This has been, we kicked it off with 5 or 6 in a row, and then we had a new instructor every month. And so we're going to review that on tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific and the relative times across the time zones. So that's what's coming up. And I can go back to this guy to say thank you very much for being here today. And vivisect the circle of this. We hope that it'll be alive when we're done. Anyway, thank you all for being here. And as always, I look forward to seeing you next week. You can leave your questions here. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of Dulcimer Crossing. Thanks most of all for playing your instruments.